I'm pet sitting right now for the cutest little corgi in the world, so I'm in heaven. I thought it would be a good time to finally make a video about the most recent reads I've done in January and February. Did a little poll on YouTube to see if you guys would be interested in some book related videos, and I got a majority vote saying yes. So here it is. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I have read recently, and just as context, my favorite genre of books, I prefer literary fiction. That's my main type of book I gravitate to. Oh my god, look at this dog. What are you growling about? What are you growling about? The niche I prefer for books are like weird girl fiction, and if you're unfamiliar with what that means, I would say it's like if Brat was a book. So like kind of messy, maybe a little unhinged girl, kind of like feminine rage a lot of the time, maybe a little violent, a little bit grotesque. That's my bread and butter when it comes to books. So if that sounds appealing to you, then I definitely have some recommendations. Oh my god, this dog. You want to be on camera too? Yeah. And also, disclaimer, I might give spoilers to books. I'm gonna try not to, but it might happen on accident, so your warning is now. Also, I don't have any of the books physically with me because, first of all, I live on the road, so I can't be collecting a ton of books. So after I read one, I tend to just donate it right away. And then second off, I also 80% of the time am listening to books because I like to listen to audiobooks while I paint. So I also journal the books I read so then I can reference and look back and remember, because I kind of have the memory of a goldfish sometimes. So the first book that I read in January is called The Country Will Bring Us No Peace, and I had the physical copy of that one. I ended up donating it to one of those little mini libraries on the street, but it was a really quick read. It was actually originally written in French and translated to English, and I felt like it was a really great translation. It was very captivating, and if you like kind of ominous, creepy vibes, definitely would recommend. If you've read or are familiar with Our Wives Under the Sea, it's a very similar kind of thing. It's a very creepy, ominous story, but at the end of the day, it's really just a metaphor for grief. And I won't try to spoil too much of the content of it, but basically this couple moves from the big city, I think from New York, to the country because they're dealing with the passing of their child, and they are hoping that being like connected with nature and in a smaller town where they could know their neighbors will bring them peace. And that is not what happens as the that is not what happens as the title would make you think. So when I was doing some like, TikTok research on this book, people were saying it's horror, and I wouldn't say it's horror. It's not that crazy. It definitely has like a creepy vibe, but it was a book I finished in a day. It was a really quick read, but super, like, I didn't put it down as soon as I started it. So highly recommend The Country Will Bring Us No Peace by Matthew Simard. I hope I pronounced that French name correct. The second book that I consumed in January, I listened to this one. The audiobook was amazing. You're so cute. Look at you. Just wants to be part of the video. Is Eliza Clark's She's Always Hungry, which I was not aware was a collection of short stories. I honestly just saw Eliza Clark had made a new book and I clicked purchase immediately because Eliza Clark is one of my top 10 favorite authors, and she wrote Penance, which was my #1 book for last year that I read, and Boy Parts. And those are just like some of my absolute top recommendations if you enjoy weird girl fiction. This was a collection of short stories. I wasn't aware of that when I bought it. I just bought it, honestly, and I listened to the audiobook version, and oh my god, the voice actors for this audiobook, she is one of the voice actors, and then there's a bunch of others, but it just is such a fun listen. And I listened to it also in like a day and a half while painting, and it was so good. Definitely like trigger warning for all the books I'm recommending. I probably would suggest reading the trigger warnings because I tend to read some pretty fucked up books, so do with that what you will. The very first short story in this book is huge trigger warning, but it sets the scene for what you're about to experience. And there is like a mix of like science fiction, which I also don't usually gravitate towards, but there's just a lot of very messy girl stories in this. So amazing, perfect, 5 out of 5, loved it. Loved every second of it. I think I want to read it again, actually. Okay, another book I listened to the audiobook of because I listened to it on a plane. I finished it on the trip to and from Nashville, is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This one, so I admittedly don't read a lot of books by men. It's not on purpose, it just happens to be that way. This book was giving like really good HBO science fiction series, like so addictive, so engaging and like exciting. It definitely grabbed my attention. However, I kind of have a couple complaints about just the descriptions of women in this. It just really felt like a man wrote it, and like he did. So I don't know. Apparently they made it into a show. I haven't seen it yet. I'm excited to see it, but I do fear a little bit for how the female characters get portrayed. So do with that what you will. I gave that one a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. Like, it was really good. I just don't tend to read thrillers or like science fiction adventure kind of stories like this, but it definitely got me thinking. I haven't stopped thinking about it. I'm kind of worried. It's a lot about interdimensions and accidentally like falling into different dimensions and then like creating even more infinite timelines. And that kind of stuff freaks me out because honestly, I can't even deal with this current timeline. So I don't really want to think about like what I've done to accidentally send another version of myself down the wrong path. So I don't want to think about that, but it's still good. So if you like science fiction, you should read it. My sister is an English master's student and she's a big Nathaniel Hawthorne connoisseur. She sent me this PDF to read of The Artist of the Beautiful by Nathaniel Hawthorne. And you know, it's that kind of old style of writing. Sometimes it's hard for me to process exactly what we're talking about because it doesn't even feel like English. Okay, no biting. I'm not gonna play with you if you're gonna bite. That's mean. Okay, yeah, you can lick, that's fine. So yeah, she sent me this short story because she knew it would resonate with me because it's about an artist that ends up losing their creative voice due to basically like bullies and kind of macho people in his town making fun of him for being an artist. And it was just honestly kind of brought me to tears. I didn't think that something so like old-fashioned would resonate, but I guess some things just never change. There is a quote from this short story that I wrote down that I want to read because it just hit me in the heart. So, the spirit of the art was not dead or passed away, only slept. Sometimes I feel like my true creative voice and art is sleeping. It's like dormant, and that doesn't mean it's gone. It just means it's slept. And I felt like that is a true statement about the artist's condition. I wrote another quote that also hit home, which was, "This is the calamity of men whose spiritual part dies out of them and leaves them grosser understanding to assimilate them more and more." So, I mean, it's kind of like the wording, it's not like how we speak these days, but basically it's saying the demise of men, of humanity, making our spirit die in order to assimilate. And we let people's whimsy be killed off in order for us to feel like they're more palatable, and then we wonder why is no one making good music or good art anymore, is essentially what that sentiment meant. So yeah, reading that, I read that at a coffee shop and I was literally crying at the coffee shop just reading this. And then I haven't journaled about this one yet. I just finished it. It's an audiobook. It's called Evenings and Weekends by Oisin McKenna. I don't know what they're putting in Irish novels, but the Irish can write such an amazing depiction of like the human condition in a way that I don't feel like anyone else can. Like everybody who's read Normal People, Conversations with Friends, Talking at Night, all those kind of books, this is definitely on the same wavelength as those, and they all happen to be written by Irish people. I think that they're onto something. I absolutely love Irish authors, love them. So this one, absolutely gut-wrenching. It had me captivated. Anytime I had any alone time, I was listening to this book because it trades different perspectives of all these different people that are in the same world, like community, and you get their internal thoughts. Every couple pages it switches to a different person's perspective, and it is a really great commentary on the queer experience. It's a really great commentary on like having a chronic health issue, condition of being a woman. There's just so many different, really, like, it's honestly really sad, but also kind of like heartwarming. It's one of my favorites that I have listened to on Audible. So evenings and weekends, highly recommend it if you're ready to cry. I listened to another very short book. It's by Claire Keegan, another Irish author. I'm so excited to listen to more Claire Keegan. There's so many short stories that I have in my TBR to read from her, and the one I read last month was Foster, and it's about this very young child that has to go live with other people while her family is preparing for yet another child. They have too many children that they can't care all for. Another like human condition, gut-wrenching story, but it leaves you like so hopeful. I don't know, it was so good, and another really good one to listen to. It was really quick though, so I might buy it physically and read it again. And then the most recent book I am still in the middle of, Good Girl by Aria Aber, is the most recent book I've been reading. I haven't finished it yet. I have about 3 hours left of listening to it on Audible, and it's about a family that has immigrated from Afghanistan to Germany, and the perspective is from the young daughter. She's like only 19, and she is like deep in like the rave culture of Berlin, and like is getting kind of mixed up with some dangerous people. And I don't know how it's all gonna pan out yet, but I'm excited to finish that one. And I love any books that center around the art world. So she's like also a photography student at an art school, and I like hearing about the fine art world through fiction. It's one of my favorite little niches about fiction as well. But yeah, so those are my most current reads, and I think soon I want to make a video about like my top 10 weird girl fiction, talk a little bit more about weird girl fiction, if that sounds interesting to all of you. And yeah, my camera's about to die anyway, so toodaloo.